Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here on 89.5 FM, WSKV, Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, Southwick Community Programming, and now Agawam Media. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. And today on Artsbeat, we are joined by two folks from Berkshire Theater Group, Kate Maquire, who is the Managing Director and CEO, and Eric Hill, who's one of the directors at Berkshire Theater Group who will be directing yet another Edward Albee play this season. It's good to see both of you with spring in the air down here in the Valley. I know that summer theater in the Berkshires can't be too far away. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. So you both of you just recently announced a great season that kicks up pretty soon, along with some special events that I'm really ramped up and excited about. But I can't remember if this is the 94th or 95th season, but it's one of those, right?
Well, it's the 100th in 2028. Okay. So if we were all mathematicians, we could figure this out.
We could. As I was driving out here this morning, all I could think of was that the 90th was the hottest day in history, and we were all under a tent together having dinner at this phenomenal celebration, and all. And it's one of my favorite memories of all the years that I've gone to Berkshire Theater Group.
Oh, you're so nice to say that, because it was the hottest day in the history of the world. Yes.
It was.
But we managed. We're theater people. We know how to celebrate, right?
We sure do. We sure do. And the other thing that I'm thrilled about is, as I've been talking with other folks in theater over the last 6 months or a year, and people are trying so hard to ramp up and come back to life after the pandemic. It's great to know that Berkshire Theater Group is one of two organizations that never closed down. And so this year must be great for you, knowing that you can go full steam ahead.
Well, it's interesting because I just came from about 3 weeks of going back and forth to New York City for casting. And the actors would walk into the room and say, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've been in a room since before COVID. And I remember sitting there, whether I was with David Auburn or Greg Edelman, and thinking, wow, we've been doing this. I mean, we haven't been in a room auditioning all the time, but we've been putting on shows. And yes, I feel really fortunate and lucky for the staff that we work with to have all the information that we have and to have managed to keep folks safe through this.
So let's give people a quick rundown of some of the plays and musicals that are going to be at either the Colonial Theater or the Unicorn. And I'm curious why the Fitzpatrick is not part of the season this year.
So the Fitzpatrick is getting upgraded in its HVAC systems. And at the same time that we're doing those upgrades, we've decided to take a pause and get it all spiffed up as we head towards that 100th anniversary. So we're in discussion about what that theater may need for the next 100 years. It is an iconic building that is beloved. And so we're looking at the interior, the space, trying to figure out, where will theater be in 100 years? It's an interesting question. And artists like Eric will be joining me to sort through what they have found in working in that space. And also to consider, we have a 700-seat space theater at the Colonial, a beautiful space, which is where we will be presenting the wonderful 8-time Tony winning musical Once, directed by Greg Edelman, who I mentioned a few moments ago. And David Auburn, who I also mentioned, will be directing Dracula in that space. And then in the Unicorn, we start with an extraordinary play called Broken Code, Bird Switching by Tara Wilson Noth. move on to Songs for a New World, and then wind up with Seascape in that beautiful 120 seat space. So we're very fortunate to have these other theaters, and at the same time to be able to reflect on the past nearly 100 years and to consider what will be best for us, for our audiences. When I say us, I mean our artists, for our audiences and for the theater community at large, because we really have mirrored the growth of the American theater and want to continue to do so. So that was a long answer to your question.
Yeah, but it's a nice mix. It's a nice mix of plays and musicals. The Jason Robert Brown musical "Songs for a New World." He's got a brand new show opening on Broadway next week called Mr. Saturday Night that
Mhm.
actually previewed in the Berkshires.
Great.
But then Edward Albee's Seascape, which Eric you're directing, I saw that in its pre-Broadway run at Kennedy Center. I was working in the box office when it played there. And I thought it was a fascinating play, and particularly for the costuming. And it went on to Broadway. It was funny, but it was unique. And I don't think people do it very often, but I'm really thrilled to see that you're bringing it to the Berkshires.
Yeah, it's a wonderful play, and I am thrilled to be able to do yet another Edward Albee play. I think I'm becoming the world's expert on Edward Albee in production. It's always amazing the way he can turn the dial and help us to see our own humanity from a very different light. It's fun to work on his plays because he gives you enormous opportunities to imagine how to stage the play and to work with the actors inside a very complex and as you say funny and ultimately difficult situation. So yeah, I'm delighted. I'm delighted for the privilege to work again in the great Unicorn Theater, which is a wonderful space to direct a play in, and a wonderful space to try to tackle a difficult play. And the advantage of having an audience that close and that intimate really helps.
Did You've gravitated towards doing a lot of plays by Edward Albee in the last few years? Was it intentional, or did it sort of just happen?
I think it just sort of happened. Um, I didn't go hunting down those plays. It might have been more intentional on Kate's part because she's the one who ultimately picks the plays. And I'm certain this last time probably had a certain degree of, well, it's inevitable that he would go to this next step. But I didn't deliberately seek it out. It just sort of fell out that way.
Yeah, because it, it all of the Albee plays that you've done are very different among his repertoire and his canon. And I just was curious whether you were already looking for you'll do Seascape this year and then looking for the next one next year, or whether it's just a matter of circumstance.
I think it's just a matter of circumstance. I mean, the plays of his that I have done, with the possible exception of the piece that was originally the one act, and then he made a whole play out of it, which the title is now escaping me suddenly.
The zoo, at home at the zoo, or something
Yeah,
like that.
at home at the zoo, and it's taken Zoo Story, which was a one act, and expanded it into a two act. And
Kate,
it was, I mean, a discovery.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Kate,
sorry.
a
Did
question
you say
for
something?
you. You're bringing Greg Edelman comes back year after year, and David Auburn. Who are some of the other faces that will be directing or designing this year that are part of the Berkshire Theater Group family?
Sure. So Jerry McIntyre will be working on Songs for a New World. Eric, of course. Um, it is an interesting year because we also have some new people working with us, new artists working with us. Camille Howard, who right now is assisting on Porgy and Bess at the Metropolitan, will be with us to do Broken Code, Bird Switching, and I'm excited to mix it up and bring back folks that have been designing, Eric's team of designers he's worked with for years. Um, but there are also, other designers coming back like Dan Kotlowitz, who's been lighting the theater since I think before my time, which is now nearly 30 years. And in a couple of weeks, we'll get out our casting announcement, which will also bring back some familiar faces and some new faces. I think it's important to keep invigorating the theater, and to always consider that new voices have different takes. I mean, what's comfortable about working with artists like Eric and David Auburn is that we share a vocabulary. We know we share that vocabulary, but we are artists and seek to expand our vocabularies. And so making sure that there are new folks joining us, I think is equally important. And to get back to the, for a moment, to Seascape, I've been working really closely with David Auburn. We just finished up a collaboration with the Roundabout Theater where we had 4 playwrights from the Roundabout that came and were with us for a week in a playwriting residency that David Auburn oversaw. And when I asked David for some help in picking the plays, the straight plays, as we call them this year, he's the one that said, Eric should do Seascape. Others have said it throughout the years. But, you know, once you have the goat, then moving on to lizards feels perfectly simple.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You've got a world premiere amongst the selection of plays that you're doing. Is this a work that you commissioned, or did you discover it? And
Yes, it's a work that was brought to me, I think it was 2018. Tara Wilson Noth, who has a home in the Berkshires, sent me the script. It was fascinating. It's a fascinating look at an African-American woman who rises to the top echelon in her field, which is she's a lawyer at a predominantly white, very fancy law firm. She is asked by a woman that lives in poverty to represent her son, who's charged with murder. And the woman believes her son to be innocent. The attorney is like, this is not what I do. Why would I do this? And then begins to wonder, why is she doing anything that she does in her life? How has she wound up in this world that she's in, so far from where she came? So it's a story about identity. It looks at this young Black male who is about to be incarcerated. And so we enter that world, and we entered that world with this play before it was so predominantly in front of us. And as we kept moving forward, yes, we workshopped the play. We did a reading out in Los Angeles that I went to see. It was incredibly moving. And we were going to do it the year that COVID hit, but we're finally getting to put it up on its feet. I'm really excited about the piece.
how has the piece changed since the time that you first read it and first workshopped it to now? Has it gone through a lot of change and development? People are always curious about new
Yeah,
plays.
they always get shorter, which is kind of nice, because you start really focusing on what's important and what is the story that I want to tell. And so a lot of things can get cut away at. I think that Tara has taken the time to really shape the characters. I loved being in the audition room to hear the words come off the page, and the words as they are now. The actors were, every actor that walked in was incredible in telling these stories. So I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled to be
And
presenting.
has the same group of actors been involved in it from the first workshop, or has the acting company changed as the play has evolved?
The acting company has changed as the plays evolved. The young man that played the role for us a few years ago is now too old to play the role. So yes, the actors have changed as the characters have changed.
As you're putting this together, is there an idea that it will move somewhere else? Or are you just taking it at this point and looking at it as something Berkshire Theater Group will do? I mean, I know that you've had other things like Children of a Lesser God play on the stage where Broadway was the intent. Is this a show that you hope will go elsewhere, or are you only thinking of it as the Berkshires for the moment?
We're not working on it right now with a New York producer. However, I think the piece is going to gain a lot of attention. In a couple of weeks, I'll also be able to announce a major grant that the play has just been awarded, which I think will bring additional attention to the piece. I'm stunned at how the play speaks to the times, how well this play speaks to the times that we are living in and have been living in for the past couple of years.
As we're talking about all of this with Kate Maquire and Eric Hill from Berkshire Theater Group, you may wonder about the dates, the times, how to get tickets and all of that. And I memorized the website, which is berkshiretheatergroup.org. So by all means, go check it out, because we're not going to list performance by performance for you. But the one thing that I can say is that you ought to order your tickets and make your plans to go up there early, because a lot of times some of these shows at Berkshire Theater Group get a lot of attention, and by the time people get around to ordering tickets, there are none to be had, particularly in the intimate Unicorn Theater space. Now, you've got some Memorial Day weekend, some really special people coming to town.
Oh, we have the great Tony Yazbek, wonderful song and dance man, coming on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And yoo-hoo, Cheetah Rivera will be with us for a 2 p.m. performance on Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. I mean, Cheetah Rivera, a legend in her own time, right?
Indeed.
We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And she arrives with a 3-piece orchestra, and will be out there telling her story and singing some of the songs that she has loved singing over the years. And I'm thrilled to be able to meet Cheetah and Tony.
Have you met Cheetah Rivera before, or is this going to be a first?
No, I've seen her on stage, but I've never met her. Have you?
I've never met her. I've seen her on stage in a number of musicals over the years. I saw her in Chicago. I saw her in The Rink. I saw her at Williamstown in a musical called The Visit. She's an icon.
She's an icon. Yes, we're really thrilled. And then later in the summer, we have Charles Brown, who was nominated for a Tony for Motown, will be coming and doing his special tribute to Smokey Robinson. So we've got these 3 great Broadway stars coming and putting on their shows. Greg Edelman, another associate, organizes this for us and reaches out to his buddies and says, hey, how about a night in the Berkshires? And usually they jump at it. So we're looking forward.
I've talked to actors over the course of the last 6 months doing interviews, and there's a real draw that people have about wanting to work at Berkshire Theater Group or Chester or Barrington Stage. What is it that makes some of the people that you work with want to come back year after year? Like Eric, why do you choose to direct at Berkshire Theater Group year after year when you could direct in any theater in the country you wanted to?
It's a shorter commute to work. It's just a great organization from top to bottom. I go there, I want to do something, I try to make it as clear as possible what I want to do, and then everybody in the organization works really hard to make that happen, without exception. Everybody. And so when you're working like that with people you've worked with before, so that when you're thinking about what you need before you even turn to say I need this, it's already there, because they've read your mind. That's the kind of organization you want to work for. Those are the kind of people you want to work for, because they take pride in the product. And when the play's successful, when the play works, they all feel a part of that. And that's why we do what we do. It's a collective art. It's something that makes people feel whole and part of something, and the audience is then drawn in to complete that circle. And that's why I like to work there, is because that's what the person who's in charge, that's what's foremost in her mind. So everybody else thinks that way.
The other thing that people have said is that it's a real family at Berkshire Theater Group. And I know that some of the people from Berkshire Theater Group that have started either as interns or apprentices or got their first job or two in smaller roles have moved on to bigger and better things. Mike Wartella is a Berkshire native who's now starring in a pre-Broadway musical about the singer Dion, and he's come back year after year to do work there, and there have been others as well. So, is do you have some of the people that are around and about in the regionals now or on Broadway that got their start at Berkshire Theater Group in the last few years?
Oh my goodness, there's so many people. I mean, if you watched The Gilded Age, I think every actor that's been on our stage was in that show. They were all, just go to The Gilded Age, go through the cast list afterwards. I mean, even Kelly O'Hara, who's in that, was just with us last year and the year before. Cynthia Nixon, that is filled with all of our folks. There's a wonderful wall at the Playhouse. Some people call it the Wall of Stars, and they're all there. People have said when they come to us, and mind you, it's a long history. So many people have said, oh yeah, I have to do Berkshire Theater. If you haven't done Berkshire Theater in your life, you haven't done theater. It's a nice reputation that we've been able to pull together, to garner. The people that we work with are very respectful. We live in a time where we all have to think much more about equity and how we work together. And many of the requests that we get in the summer or applications that we get also say we want to work with Berkshire Theater because we know your reputation for working fairly and respectfully. And Mark, at this point in time, I can't even begin to tell you how much that means. Certainly to me as the head of the organization, it means the world.
As things are opening up and people are going back to the theater and performances, what kind of regulations and what kind of precautions will you have to take this summer to ensure everybody's safety? Will people need to be masked and vaccinated to go to performances and to work in the theater as they have in the last couple of years, or will things loosen up a little bit?
Well, we're performing right now. So this Saturday, we have the wonderful Mary Pope Osborne, who's written the Magic Tree House books, coming in, and she's doing a book signing. And then we have a performance of one of her pieces, which has been adapted into a musical. At this time, we are asking that everyone be fully vaccinated. Masks are recommended. However, I was just in New York City. The B2 variant there's an uptick, and a couple of shows have been impacted in New York. We're usually 1 or 2 weeks behind that. We monitor every 2 weeks among the staff to look forward. And of course, we're regulated by union regulations. So we'll be looking to the union at the end of April. They have said they will review their protocols. The short answer to this is I don't know where we're going to be in the summer. I know that we have managed through all phases of this virus, and we'll figure out a way to get the show on its feet. At the same time, we pay attention to keeping our audiences and actors safe.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very comfortable going to the theater these days in certain theaters, but I'm doing my first jaunt to New York since the pandemic started in a couple of weeks. So I have to see hopefully the show will go on and not get canceled at the last minute, but I'm looking forward to it. Then I'll feel I've come full circle.
Exactly.
Should remind everybody before we go here that you can find information about Berkshire Theater Group and their season lineup at the Colonial Theater and the Unicorn Theater at berkshiretheatergroup.org. And I discover what's going on oftentimes on Facebook. So you find a presence there. So when does the season, it's Memorial Day this year that everything really kicks off for this, quote, the summer. Summer's not just 8 weeks anymore for Berkshire Theater. It goes from May now till the holidays.
That's true. Yeah, we just keep going. We've got stages. We might as well put something on them, right?
Great. Yeah, we're out of time, but I want to thank you both. Kate Maquire, the CEO and Artistic Director of Berkshire Theatre Group, and Eric Hill, who is a director there who specializes it's the last few years in the works of Edward Albee. They're my theater brothers and sisters, and I can't wait to see you live and in person this summer in Stockbridge and Pittsfield.
The feeling is mutual, Mark. We can't wait to see you.
Thanks for being with us. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, Southwick Community Programming, Agawam Media. Ken Stomsky is our chief engineer this morning. If you missed a part of today's program and you want to watch it again or share it with friends, you can find it archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
Right here on WSKB 89.5.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Development director at Barrington Stage, and she's written a play called Boca, which many of you saw last summer. And Boca has moved to Florida, where it opens for a run at the Gables Stage in Greater Miami. Jessica, what's it like seeing your show move on from the Berkshires to Florida?
It's the best. I get to do it again is really the big thing, you know. So what happens with a play is at a certain point you have to lock it in. You have to every time I tried to make a change, like Julianne Boyd would like smack my hand and say, stop it. So what happens is you watch it for a month and you say, okay, that moment works, that moment doesn't work, I want to cut that scene, I want to add that character. And having a second production lets you do that. You know, you're able to get in there and tinker around.
So as people are going to go see it in Florida, it's another production that Barrington Stage has produced and sent onward. And some of the ones I remember are On the Town that went to Broadway, American Son, and there's so many. But as the show has morphed, how different is it or will it be in Coral Gables from what it was in Pittsfield?
It's different. I mean, the first big difference is that we are inside a theater, which is like, I don't know if you could appreciate this last summer when you came, but we were in a tent, and sometimes it was pouring, and sometimes it was sweltering hot, and sometimes we had like a hurricane. We had to take all the lights down, put them back in. We had trains passing and car alarms. So the thing that makes me the most excited is that we are in a physical theater. But secondly, I've been working on it all year. So starting in the fall, the play now I've cut 3 characters. I've added characters. Instead of 6 actors, there's 5. When we first opened, it ran 2 hours. Now it's 75 minutes. Like it's a different experience. It's kind of like if you get to go in there and play with something and keep honing it. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, Julianne Boyd, who's the artistic director at Barrington Stage, who directed the world premiere, she's directing the production in Coral Gables. Is anybody else from Barrington Stage besides the 2 of you involved in the new production?
Actually, yes. We're thrilled. So of the 5-person cast, one of the actors has come down to do the show, Robert Zuckerman. You must know Robert from his many performances at Barrington Stage and beyond. And he's a delight. So it's really thrilling. He's playing some of the same characters, and then he's playing 2 different characters from last time. And Alex Zavronsky, the sound designer, is actually designing the show from a distance. So he's not coming down, but it's sound, and he's got some boots on the ground in Coral Gables that he is talking to, and we zoom in for rehearsals, and he hears them, and so he's also part of the team. And then there's also some of the behind the scenes people who help make it happen. The play really is moving down there because we have a board member named Roz Stuzen at Barrington Stage, who's also on the board at Gable Stage, and she read the script, read an early draft of the script last May, so almost a year ago, and handed it to the new artistic director at Gable Stage, this is her first season. She's from Penobscot, where she'd been for 9 years. And Roz said, this is funny, let's do it. And Barry Newport, the artistic director, read it, and they signed on a year ago. So Roz is instrumental too, even though it's behind the scenes, but from Barrington as well.
So where's the show been rehearsing? In Pittsfield or New York or Florida or combination?
In Florida. Julie moved down to Florida for a month, which is wild. And I have been going back and forth, which is not something I recommend. So we've been rehearsing, and this is really cool. We're actually rehearsing on the set. So the way they do it is they put the set in about a month early, and then the actors get to spend a whole month, playing, which is a real luxury, because when we do shows at Barrington, the set goes in on Monday, and the show opens on Friday. So you've got, or Saturday, Sunday, something like that. So it's a luxury. One of the other things, have you ever been down there to Gable Stage by chance?
I worked in Miami for 6 months in my career, but at the time, I don't remember there's a really great theater scene in Miami of smaller theater companies, but I can't remember actually having gone to Gable Stage.
Well, Gable Stage is at the Biltmore Hotel, which is one of those like old, grand, incredible hotels with this unbelievable pool, that just kind of wraps around the whole place, and golf courses and that sort of thing. And Gable Stage is, I think, 24, 25 years old, and it was started by a man named Joe Adler, who actually, who passed away during COVID at the beginning of the pandemic. But his shoes are big. Everybody talks about Joe. Joe and Gable Stage seem to be really linked. So the fact that they have a new artistic director and a new vision is a big deal for them. But the show has been rehearsing in Coral Gables on the stage, which is wonderful. And the reason I asked you if you'd been there is the stage is weird. It's like 20 feet deep and 60 feet wide. And the good news for us is that since we have so many scene changes, we're able to not move the set. So when you saw it last summer, every scene, you have to bring it on, bring it off. Now you just lights up, lights down. The whole thing moves a lot more quickly.
Yeah, in working with a different group of actors in a revised set, has the show taken on something different at this point? Is it got a different flavor than it did at the beginning?
I mean, we're still a week from opening, so we're still discovering everything. But yes, it's fascinating to have new actors, doing some of the same scenes. It's wild to me, actually. It's a tremendous, it's a little hokey, but it's like a real gift, to hear different voices. The woman, you'll probably remember, because this is the scene that started the play. It's the scene where a woman comes to her neighbor's house with a lasagna, and the woman playing that role, Barbara Bonilla, could not be more different than Peggy Farr Wilson, who I thought was wonderful. They just have such a different take on it, both completely plausible. And it's real fun for me to get to see, it can really be inhabited in a different way.
When did you actually start working on Boca? I remember that I saw a scene or two of it in the 10 by 10 new play festivals that Barrington Stage is known for. But when did you say, all right, I'm going to take that segment and I'm going to turn it into a play?
Well, I never really said that. But what happened was, I wrote the first scene in the end of 2019. And it was really just meant to be a 10-minute play, as you said. It was part of the 10-minute play festival. It was great fun. And I thought, that was terrific. I'm all done. Then Julie said, what if we commissioned you to write an evening of short plays for senior actors? We have so many incredible, talented actors in our midst here in Pittsfield. And there's not there's not so many great parts. What if you wrote a whole evening of short plays, kind of like, David Ives, All in the Timing, or kind of like the 10 by 10, just give them a place to run around and play. So I said, great, that was exciting for me. And I wrote a second scene for the next year's 10 by 10, which was called On the Rocks, which was about a family coming by Grandpa's house, and, Grandma's died in the other room and Grandpa hasn't told anybody. So I wrote that scene. And then those two scenes became kind of the cornerstone. So when Julie had asked me to write it, I said, okay, great. And then we put it all on fast forward in March of last year. So in March of 2021, they were looking for a comedy at Barrington Stage to put on in an outdoor tent, and essentially said, nobody's writing anything funny. Would you get this done? So I spent the next few months and got out, the first draft and the second draft. And I don't know, I'm on like the 17th draft right now, but, yeah. So in earnest, I started it in March, 2021, and we opened in August, 2021. And, so it was fast.
Yeah. Did you know when you opened that it was going to go on to Florida, or did that happen after the fact?
No, I did know. And that was really like a great luxury. I had Mark St. Germain come and hold my hand for a number of the previews. And I said, Mark, I want to change that. I want to do that, but I can't. And he said, this is why you have the second production. Like, good, Mark has written so many plays and had so many productions. So it was nice to have him say that. I will say that as the run went on in Pittsfield, it got tighter and stronger. And by the closing performance, which is about 1 month in, Robert Zuckerman, who's still in the production, came over to me and said, okay, if this was Broadway, now we'd open. Like we had a month of previews and now we get to do it. Because they kept finding things, which was really fun. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah. I know that you work on other plays. How many plays are you working on, or other types of writing are you working on while you're revising and revamping Boca for Florida?
Oh, that's a good question. I had a real gift recently. I applied and was selected to be a writer in residence at the Mount, Edith Wharton's estate. Have you been there?
I've been there, yes.
Oh, it's glorious. So I spent a week, and I was assigned a room, and it was really funny because there were 3 writers there. One was a poet, one was writing nonfiction, and I was writing plays. And I ended up with Teddy's bedroom, which was like the afterthought, because like Edith has their incredible bedroom and her incredible office. And I had Teddy's room, which was pretty bare bones, but it had that view, this incredible view of the Mount looks over. And I spent a week, and I got to be a writer, and they brought food to my room, and they took care of me. And during that time, I started a new play and wrote about a third of it. And it's totally different. I don't think of myself as writing comedies. I like to write situations that occasionally like amuse me, or hopefully amuse other people too. So sometimes the plays are far more serious, and then they just have moments of comedy. So I started writing this play that is set in Stockbridge, which is where I live. And it's essentially a one-person show. I don't know if it's a man or a woman yet. That is kind of like a modern day Our Town, which is highly ambitious, but it's a one-person Our Town, where a town has it's a fictional situation where a town has really suffered from a great act of violence, and they're all kind of coming to terms with it. So at this point, I'm writing that at the same time as Boca.
How did you get into writing in the first place? What made you decide that you had to write? And how did it become plays?
Well, it was always plays. I fell in love with the theater at a young age, as I think so many of us have. And I decided at age 11 that I was going to be a director. I started directing plays. I mean, I was like this little kid out there, and I was tiny, but I would boss people around and put on shows. And I loved it. I mean, it was the only thing that I was like really good at. And it was so fulfilling. All my little friends were like dancing and doing gymnastics, and I was like in the theater. But I was very aware. I was like, I don't want to be an actress. I want to be behind the scenes. Anyway, long story short, in college, I ended up taking a playwriting class for fun. And it was fun because there was no pressure on me. I thought, I'm a director. So I went to Northwestern, and it was a year-long course that I took with this incredible man named John Logan, who's a really marvelous playwright. And he was a champion of mine. Like, he just said, keep going, keep doing this. And it was fun, Mark. It was like, I had a great time. So I started writing plays.
Have you written a lot that have been produced, or are you writing for a show to be produced, or you're writing for yourself?
I typically write. It's sad to say I write for myself, but I typically write for myself without knowing like what the next steps will be. And productions have looked like a lot of different things for me, whether they're workshops or readings or small productions. I would say that the production at Barrington Stage last year was, the biggest stage that I had in terms of a show. And, I was in New York for 15 years. And in that time, you make friends, you have a community, and I would write plays and we'd put them up, and we'd do them at Barra Group and EST, and I have to think of all the names, the Theater Source, some theaters that aren't even there anymore. And, it was really fulfilling. It was great to have a community of artists that you could just create things for. Sometimes I had friends who'd say like, hey, write me a movie, and I would. So that's what it was like.
Do you prefer writing for the stage or film? I mean, they're very, very different kind of writing. But in creating a story, if you have your druthers, do you prefer something that ends up on the stage or on the screen?
I mean, at this point, I think theater is alive, and it's just so fulfilling. And it's great. Like down at Gable Stage right now, I'm blown away. There's tons of people who are like painting the set and making the costumes, and just all the pieces that it takes to put on a show and watch it come to life. And what's really fun for me in the theater is just how many different ideas there are. Like the sound designer, the sound is so important to the show. It moves it along, and he brings an element to it that I never would have thought of. And I'm sure that can happen in film too. But to me, there's just something so great about sitting in a room with an audience and having them react to the work on stage. For me, like I go to theater and it's my temple. Like I love going to theater by myself and sitting in the audience and just having an experience. I like going with other people too, as long as they don't talk to me during the show.
Well, no, I love going to the theater. I'm blessed to have a job that allows me to go review shows.
Fantastic.
But even on nights when I'm not reviewing, if there's something I want to see, I'm happiest sitting in a darkened theater watching a play, whether I'm with somebody or by myself. It's a gift. We're so lucky to have it. You also work in theater, in development and fundraising. What's the theater community in the Berkshires like compared to the theater community in Coral Gables in Miami?
Well, I'm still figuring out the community in Coral Gables. That's very new to me. So I've been down there, a total of 8 days, and I'm going back for a week. So I probably will be able to say that a little bit more clearly when I return. In the Berkshires, people are hungry for culture in the summer. They're out every night. These people, they come and they're at Jacob's Pillow and Tanglewood and Barrington Stage and Williamstown and all the museums. And I know that during COVID, there were some folks who were like, you know what? it's the first time I've had like some downtime because they're just packed. I don't know the community in the Miami area yet, except that there does seem to be, in a similar way, a very dedicated group of subscribers and audience members who, go to Gable Stage and have been going for decades. The only thing that strikes me as particularly different that I'm aware of is I'm very conscious of the politics. Politics in Massachusetts are different than the politics in Florida. I don't have to tell you that. And I'm a little bit more aware of it in Miami. Miami's a blue city, but there's a little bit more of like who's the audience and are you going to offend people? I'm writing a comedy. I want people to come and have a great time. I don't want to alienate half the audience. And so there's a little bit of awareness in terms of like, how are they politically aligned that I'm still figuring out.
Plus, I would assume that they have a different impression of all of the, quote, Yankees who retire in Florida than we up here in Massachusetts think of the snowbirds who go down for a couple of months every winter. So there's a different mindset when you look at the people that inhabit Boca. I live in a condominium complex where a good percentage of them head down to Florida, whether it's Boca or the surrounding towns, and they leave right after Christmas and they come back right around Easter. And they are constantly at the pool comparing, in Boca we do this, in Boca we do that. And so I always thought Boca was like this Garden of Eden, like a Mecca somewhere. And I have family in Miami, and when I actually saw what Boca was, it's just another suburb to me.
That's funny. Well, actually, the reason I said it in Boca is because as you mentioned, I'm the development director at Barrington Stage, and once a year, the artistic director and I get on a plane and go down to Florida and raise some money for the theater because all of our money goes south in the winter. And when I was thinking about creating a play for senior actors, I immediately decided I wanted to set it in a community. The play has part of how it's morphed. It has become, the through lines are stronger than they were last summer. And there's a great sense that everybody is sort of in this community together. And that's something I've worked really hard on. But in any case, I thought Boca was funny. It's like they have gates to get into every community, and there's like the perfect grass, and the weather is always nice. And we have this one friend down there who, she has like a little moat around her house. And I was like, okay, you can't take yourself too seriously if you have a moat. Like you just can't.
Exactly. You chose to write Boca for an older actor. There aren't a lot of parts that are being written for older actors. Was that intentional on your part, or did it just sort of happen?
No, it was. For when we started the plays, the 10 by 10, which you've seen for many years at Barrington Stage, there's always like 2 actors in their 20s, 2 actors in their 40s, and then 2 actors in their 60s or so. And I had never written for with senior actors as like the center of anything. And I thought, oh, that'll be fun. And the play, it's a 10-minute play. So it's just an idea. The way I think of a 10-minute play is you've got a situation, about halfway through the situation flips on its head. And then at the end, you find a moment of closure, like a button that's a bit of a surprise. And so the premise for that play, I had a colleague who his dad was like 93, and he was single, and he was like coveted in his community. It wasn't Boca, but it was a community in Fort Myers. So that was the birthplace. And I should tell you, you mentioned the Garden of Eden for Boca, and that. Thank you, because you mentioned that phrase to me before, and that has found its way into the play. There's a woman who refers to this as our Garden of Eden, and all the things that means, fountain of youth. And
yeah, once Boca opens, how long does it run at Gable State?
It runs for 5 weeks. So they have one night of previews, which is April 22nd, a week from today. And then it opens on the 23rd and it runs through May 22nd. And the really cool thing for me is, well, I'm going to go down. I'll be there for the opening. And then I'm going to go down a few weeks later and just kind of see how it's evolved and take my family. And the play will also be streamed the entire time. So they record 2 of the early performances and edit it. And that's a function of COVID. You know, there's still, we're still dealing with that all these years later. So it is streamed. And what's great for me is I have, you know, family and friends all over that hopefully will be able to tune in and check it out, even if they can't fly down to Coral Gables.
So it was, if I recall right, it was not streamed from Barrington Stage.
No.
So this will give people that never got a chance to see it up here a chance to see it in its new incarnation.
I think for people who saw it, it's new. And for people who haven't seen it, it's very new.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm excited about that just because.
Do you happen to know how, what the website is for Gable Stage so that people can go?
I'm pretty sure it's gablestage.org. Gable, Gable stage.org.
And what, yeah. So believe me, having seen it at Barrington Stage, it's really full of laughs. It is funny. I'm sure it's even funnier now that it's going to be playing down in Florida. One last question. You work at Barrington Stage, which is known for creating new works and sending new works onward. Everything from American Son to some of the shows this upcoming season that are new. Is there any playwright that has written something new in your tenure at Barrington Stage that you felt that you've gained something as a playwright from watching that person create new work?
Oh my God, that is a deep question.
Yeah.
That is deep. I'm going to think about it for a second because a few plays are coming to mind. So there's a number of plays. We did a play called Hold These Truths, which was a one-man show. I don't think we had the world premiere, but we had a very early production of it. And that play, watching that man command the stage for an hour and a half in a very quiet, very beautiful performance. Do you remember that show?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, it was beautiful. You know, it's just like you see people's different skills, different ideas. We have a show coming up this summer, so I haven't seen the process, but I am really excited about it. It's called All of Me, and so you probably will see it in the fall. And the play is performed thought to speech. So the 2 main characters are in wheelchairs and they're unable to speak. And the play is actually being performed by disabled actors. And unbelievably, it's very, very funny. So it is a romantic comedy about 2 people who can't, and what, we're not hearing their voices, we're hearing their thoughts, their talk, but it's almost like that Stephen Hawking's voice. And so I haven't seen the play evolve yet. I saw 2 readings of it. But what I'm excited about is like, oh my God, it's almost like a different medium. You know, she's taken something that whoever thought that she could make these characters so relatable and so funny to us, and yet she has. And so that's Laura Winters. I'm excited to see how that evolves. So I think to your question, you know, every time you see a play, good, bad, whatever, you know, you do learn from it, and you always walk away with something that you might want to hold on to.
Jessica, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. We've been chatting with the playwright Jessica Provenz, who created the play Boca for Barrington Stage Company, where she's the development director. And Boca has moved on to South Florida, where it opens at Gable Stages in Greater Miami. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to end today's program with Stephen Sondheim's roadshow song, Boca Raton, which is takes place in Boca. What can I say?
I love that.
Ken Stomsky has been our engineer this morning. I'm Mark Auerbach. If you missed a part of today's Artsbeat, you can find it again and listen to it, share it with friends on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. Join us next Friday for another edition of Artsbeat.
America, it's time to wake up to opportunity. Time to wake up to the most magnificent piece of real estate to hit the market since the good Lord foreclosed on the Garden of Eden. And here to tell you all about it is our very own Boca girl.
Boca Raton, come down to Boca Raton, where every sky's the bluest you've seen, where all year long the grass remains green, where every beach is clean and pristine. Buy a lot or even two, have we got a lot for you? Boca Raton, come down to Boca Raton, where every vista sparkles and gleams. City beautiful of your dreams.
The city beautiful, a work of art in itself. The city beautiful could be displayed on a shelf. A picture perfect place, a place of grace and space.
A world of seaside sports and leafy malls. A world of highlight courts and concert halls.
A world of boating, hot spring, golf links, tennis,
Newport, Saratoga, Venice. Boca Raton,
you'll covet,
Boca Raton,
you'll love it,
best though not to delay. Come and see the new frontier.
Come and be a pioneer.
You'll agree tomorrow's here today in Boca Raton.
Wilson Meisner Friends issuing you an invitation. Put your feet up, close your eyes, and join me on a VIP tour of paradise. There it is, rising up before us like the Emerald City of the legendary Oz himself, the shining Shangri-La of the New World.
Boca Raton, come down to Boca Raton, where everybody's wearing a smile, where everybody's living in style, 'cause everybody